Imagine, for just one moment, that the most honorable man in Westeros made a different choice. Not a selfish choice, not a cowardly one, but a choice so bold, so dangerous, so quietly revolutionary, that it would have rewritten the fate of every great house, every throne, and every war that followed. One decision, one night in King's Landing, one man standing between a mother, her children, and the most brutal massacre in the history of the Seven Kingdoms. What if Ned Stark saved Elia Martell and her family? The year is 283 AC. Robert's rebellion has reached its bloody, inevitable end. The Mad King, Aerys II Targaryen, lies dead on the Iron Throne steps, killed by the very man sworn to protect him. Jaime Lannister stands over the body, gold cloak soaked red, the city burning around him. But somewhere deep inside the Red Keep, in a corridor that history would rather forget, a different kind of horror is unfolding. Gregor Clegane, the mountain that rides, has already done the unthinkable. Princess Elia Martell, beloved wife of Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, lies murdered. Her infant son Aegon dashed against a stone wall. Her daughter Rhaenys stabbed beneath her bed where she hid in terror. Ned Stark arrives, too late, or so the history books say. But what if he was not too late? What if, in those final chaotic moments, as Ned Stark rode through the gates of King's Landing, ahead of Robert's forces, he reached the Tower of the Hand in time? What if he heard the screams? What if he ran faster than history allowed? What if, on that single night, Eddard Stark, the man who valued honor above all else, chose to save the innocent instead of simply bearing witness to their deaths? Everything changes. Everything. Let us set the scene properly, because the details matter here. Ned Stark was known for arriving just after the slaughter. In Cammon, he finds Elia dead and enters the Tower of Joy shortly after to find his dying sister. But history, even fictional history, moves on threads. And threads can be pulled. In our alternate timeline, Ned Stark rides harder. He enters the Red Keep not through the main gate, but through a servant's passage, one he learned of during his time as Robert's closest companion before the war. He hears Rhaenys crying. He hears a door splinter. He runs. He arrives in the hallway just as Gregor Clegane lifts baby Aegon. Ned does not hesitate. He does not deliberate. He draws ice, the ancestral greatsword of House Stark, and he puts himself between the mountain and the children. Now, here is the critical question the story asks. Can Ned Stark defeat Gregor? The honest answer is probably not in a fair fight. Gregor Clegane is a monster in the most literal sense of the word. He stands nearly 8 feet tall, armored, and fueled by something darker than loyalty or duty. He kills because he enjoys it. But Ned Stark is not alone on this night. He rides with a company of his own men. Howland Reed is with him. Lord Willem Dustin's soldiers are close behind. Numbers change everything. Gregor Clegane cuts down one of Ned's men, then another. But Howland Reed puts a blade through the gap in his armor, the same cunning trick he will use at the Tower of Joy. Clegane falls, badly wounded. He does not die, not yet, but he cannot complete his task. Elia Martell is alive, barely breathing, bruised, terrified beyond words, but alive. Rhaenys crawls out from beneath her bed, her small face pale with shock. Aegon cries in the sudden silence. Ned Stark sheathes ice and makes a decision that will echo across the next 30 years of Westerosi history. He wraps the children in his own cloak, looks at Elia, and says the words that define him as a character. "You are under my protection now, my lady. No one will harm you again." This is where the alternate timeline becomes explosively complicated, and where the story truly ignites. Ned Stark now possesses the most dangerous secret in the Seven Kingdoms. He is holding the surviving wife and children of Rhaegar Targaryen, the man Robert Baratheon blames for the entire war. Robert loved Lyanna Stark. He believes Rhaegar kidnapped and violated her. His hatred for all Targaryens is absolute, irrational, and completely genuine. If Robert knows Elia and the children are alive, he will order their deaths. Ned knows this. So what does Ned Stark, the most honest man alive, do? He lies, and this is perhaps the most fascinating psychological shift in the entire alternate history. Because Ned Stark lying to protect innocence is not out of character. We know he can do it. He kept Jon Snow's parentage secret for 17 years and carried that lie to his grave. But this lie is bigger. This lie has 3 faces attached to it. 3 living, breathing people who cannot simply be hidden in Winterfell and raised as wards without questions being asked. Ned makes a series of rapid decisions in the chaos following King's Landing's fall. First, he sends Howland Reed south immediately, with Elia and the children hidden in supply wagons. Howland's destination is Greywater Watch, the most difficult castle in Westeros to find, because it moves. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody can follow without getting lost in the neck. Second, Ned reports to Robert that the Martell children were already dead when he arrived. He does not say who killed them. He simply says he found bodies and that the mountain had fled. This protects him from Robert's immediate wrath while leaving open the question of whether Clegane will be punished. Third, Ned rides to the Tower of Joy, and here, the second great secret of this alternate history begins to layer itself onto the first. We cannot discuss Ned Stark's alternate decisions without spending serious time at the Tower of Joy. In the Mountains of Dawn, 3 members of the Kingsguard, Sir Arthur Dayne, Sir Oswell Went, and Lord Commander Gerald Hightower, stand watch over a tower where Lyanna Stark is dying after giving birth to a son. A secret son. A son fathered not by Robert Baratheon but by Rhaegar Targaryen, Jon Snow, or as he will later be revealed, Aegon Targaryen, the true heir to the Iron Throne. In canon, this fight is brutal. Ned's companions fall one by one. Only Howland Reed's timely intervention saves Ned's life. In our timeline, Howland is already gone, sent south with Elia. So Ned faces the Tower of Joy with a slightly different group. The fight goes much the same. Arthur Dayne is perhaps the greatest swordsman who ever lived. Men die, but Ned prevails. He enters the tower and finds Lyanna. She makes him promise. And now Ned Stark is holding 2 impossible secrets. He has hidden Elia Martell and her children, the legitimate heirs of the Targaryen dynasty, in the neck, and he is now raising Rhaegar's secret son as his own bastard in Winterfell. The irony is staggering. In canon, Jon is secretly the heir to everything. But in this alternate timeline, there are 2 legitimate Targaryen children already protected by Ned, Rhaenys and Aegon, the children of Rhaegar's first and lawful marriage to Elia. Jon's claim actually becomes secondary to theirs, because Elia's children were born in wedlock, while Jon's status depends entirely on whether Rhaegar secretly annulled his marriage to Elia and wed Lyanna, something even Ned does not know for certain at this point in the story. Ned Stark is now the keeper of the most explosive secrets in the entire world, and he rides north, carrying every one of them alone. In canon, one of the most destabilizing consequences of the sack of King's Landing is the reaction of House Martell. Prince Doran Martell loses his sister Elia and her children to murder. He spends the next 17 years plotting in cold, patient fury. He supports the secret survival of Daenerys Targaryen. He raises his children, Arianne, Quentyn, and Oberyn's bastard daughters, as instruments of eventual revenge. Dorne simmers with barely contained hatred toward the Lannisters and the Baratheon regime. Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper, carries that grief as a burning, personal wound for his entire life. But in our alternate timeline, Elia is alive. The moment Doran receives word, through Howland Reed's careful secret channels, that his sister and her children survived the sack, everything changes. Dorne does not become a powder keg waiting to explode. Instead, it becomes something far more interesting and far more dangerous. It becomes Doran Martell now has exactly what he always wanted in canon, a Targaryen heir, except now he has 2 of them, and their mother is his own blood. He no longer needs to dream of vengeance. He can plan for restoration. The great game of Dorne shifts from grief-fueled revenge toward calculated, long-term strategy. Elia, recovering slowly in Greywater Watch, begins sending ravens. She is a Martell. She is a survivor. And she is furious. She knows Robert sits the throne. She knows the Lannisters put him there. She knows Jaime Lannister killed her father-in-law. She knows Gregor Clegane nearly killed her and her children on Tywin Lannister's orders. She begins to plan. Years pass. In Greywater Watch, Elia raises her children in quiet exile. Rhaenys grows into a sharp, watchful young woman, fierce like her Martell blood, but patient like her mother. She never forgets the night she hid beneath her bed while a monster tried to kill her. That memory does not break her. It hardens her. Aegon grows up knowing exactly who he is, unlike in canon, where a young Aegon called Young Griff is raised in secret aboard a boat with the exiled Jon Connington. This Aegon grows up with his mother and sister, shaped by Elia's intelligence and Doran's guidance. He is trained in swordcraft by Martell loyalists. He is educated in the history of the Targaryens by maesters loyal to Dorne. He learns languages, strategy, and above all, patience. Doran Martell corresponds with him regularly. He teaches Aegon the first lesson of power, and it is the lesson that defines the Martell approach to everything. Oberyn is the spear. I am the viper in the grass. Learn to wait, nephew. The world will come to you. Aegon is not a boy who wants to rush his claim. He wants to be ready. He wants Westeros to be ready for him. Meanwhile, in Winterfell, Jon Snow grows up knowing only that he is Ned Stark's bastard. He knows nothing of his true parents. He knows nothing of his true parents. He knows nothing of Aegon and Rhaenys. He's a good boy, a kind boy skilled with a sword, with a wolf at his heels and the cold of the north in his blood. Two Targaryen lines, both hidden, both alive, both waiting. Robert Baratheon's reign, even without the Elia complication, was always destined to collapse under its own weight. He was a warrior king who did not want to be a king. He drank too much. He ignored governance. He allowed Cersei to consolidate power through their children who were not his. In canon, the rot begins almost immediately. In our alternate timeline, the rot still comes. But there is an additional layer of pressure building beneath the surface. Tywin Lannister is uneasy. He ordered the deaths of Elia and her children as a gift to Robert, a message that House Lannister was fully committed to the new regime. But the deaths never happened, and Tywin does not know it. He assumes Gregor completed his task. He assumes the Martell children are dead. This assumption is his greatest mistake, because Elia knows who gave the order. She knows, and she remembers. Somewhere in the neck, in a castle that cannot be found, a Martell princess is writing letters to Dorne by the light of a single candle, and in every letter a name appears: Tywin Lannister. The alternate timeline begins to diverge most dramatically when the events of a Game of Thrones approach. Jon Arryn's death, Ned Stark's appointment as Hand of the King, the journey south. In canon, Ned discovers the truth about Joffrey's parentage and is destroyed for it. He trusts the wrong people. He acts too honorably in a court that rewards only cunning. But in our alternate timeline, Ned carries a secret that Robert does not know. He knows Elia is alive. He knows Elia is alive. He knows Aegon is alive. He knows that somewhere in the world a legitimate Targaryen heir exists. And for the first time, as he rides south to King's Landing, Ned begins to understand that this secret may be a weapon. Not a weapon he wants to use, but a weapon he may have no choice but to draw. He makes contact with Doran Martell through an intermediary, a merchant passing through King's Landing with Dornish wine. The message is simple. The time may be coming. Is she ready? Doran's reply arrives within a fortnight. She has been ready for 15 years. In canon, Ned Stark falls because he is too honest, too rigid and too trusting. He tells Cersei he knows about Joffrey. He trusts Littlefinger. He refuses to take the pragmatic path that might have saved his life and his family. But in our alternate timeline, Ned is carrying 17 years of practiced deception. He has been lying to his best friend for his entire adult life about Jon Snow. He has been hiding a Targaryen princess and her children in one of the most remote locations on the continent. Ned Stark in his timeline has learned something that canon Ned never truly internalized. Sometimes honorable men have to play the game. He still discovers the truth about Joffrey. He still understands what it means. But instead of confronting Cersei directly, that fatal, noble, stupid mistake, he sends a raven north, not to Robb, not to Cavbim, to Howland Reed. The message activates a plan 15 years in the making. Elia Martell, now traveling under a false identity, begins moving south through Dorne. Aegon, now a young man of 15, rides with her. Rhaenys, sharper and fiercer than either of them, rides ahead to arrange their passage. The board is set. The pieces begin to move. The War of Five Kings in our alternate timeline does not happen the same way. Ned Stark does not lose his head in the Sept of Baelor. He is arrested, yes. Cersei and Joffrey still consolidate power after Robert's death on the hunting trip. But before Ned can be executed, something extraordinary happens. A letter arrives in King's Landing, written in the unmistakable hand of a woman who should be dead, sealed with the summon spear of House Martell. Elia Martell announces her survival to the world. The effect is immediate and catastrophic for the Lannister regime. Dawn erupts. Doran calls his banners not in grief and revenge, but in purpose and calculation. He declares openly that the true heirs of Rhaegar Targaryen are alive and riding for Westeros. He demands the immediate release of Eddard Stark, the man who saved them. The North, upon hearing this, holds. Robb Stark does not need to march as desperately, as rashly. He negotiates from a stronger position, because suddenly the entire southern flank of the conflict is Dornish, and Dorne is not fighting Robert's old allies. Dorne is fighting for a specific, legitimate claim. The Five Kings become four, and one of those four has a name that carries weight above all others. Aegon Targaryen. Here, the alternate timeline collides with the most explosive variable of the entire story. Daenerys Targaryen is across the narrow sea, learning to ride dragons, building an army, preparing her own return. In canon, she is Rhaegar's only surviving sibling. She is the last Targaryen. Her claim is absolute, but in our alternate timeline, she is not the last. Aegon and Rhaenys are alive, and they are Rhaegar's children, which means they stand in the line of succession above Daenerys. The question the story must ask, and it is a brutal question, is this: what happens when Daenerys and her dragons meet a Targaryen nephew and niece she never knew existed? Does she accept their claim? Does she dispute it? Does fire meet fire? Doran Martell, wise as ever, anticipates this moment. He has been in contact with Tyrion Lannister, who, in our timeline, escapes King's Landing earlier, because Ned Stark's presence changes the political calculations. Tyrion has contacts across the narrow sea. He knows Daenerys is coming. A summit is proposed. Somewhere in the narrow sea, a meeting between Daenerys Targaryen with her dragons and Elia Martell with her children. The fate of Westeros will be decided not by battle, but by family, and family, in the world of ice and fire, is the most dangerous thing of all. Before we reach the conclusion of this alternate history, we must return to Eddard Stark one final time. Because in our timeline, he lives. He is eventually released from the Black Cells, a broken man but a breathing one. He returns north, and one night, alone in Winterfell's crypts, he tells Jon Snow the truth. Not all of it. Not yet. But enough. He tells Jon that his mother was a Stark by blood, and loved. That his father was a man who believed, perhaps wrongly, that he was doing something noble. That Jon's life was protected at great cost, and that cost was borne by everyone who loved him. Jon Snow stands in the cold of the crypts and asks the question that has haunted him his entire life. Who am I? And Ned Stark, the most honest man in Westeros, who has carried the weight of so many lies for so many years, finally answers. Jon Snow, in this moment, learns that he is Aegon Targaryen, and that there is already another Aegon Targaryen riding south. The world cracks open. Step back from the alternate history for just a moment and look at what this story is really about. It is about the cost of one moment of heroism. Ned Stark saving Elia Martell does not make the world simpler. It makes it infinitely more complicated. It creates more secrets, more conflicts, more competing claims. It brings more people to the table who all have legitimate grievances and legitimate rights. In some ways, it is a perfect mirror of the books themselves. George R.R. Martin has always argued that there are no simple heroic acts in his world. Every action creates consequences. Every mercy costs something. Ned saving Elia is an act of pure honor. But that honor creates a web of deception, a hidden wall, a collision of dynasties, and ultimately forces Ned to become exactly the kind of political player he always refused to be. The most interesting version of Eddard Stark is not the man who fails to play the game. It is the man who learns to play it, not for himself, but for the people he cannot stop protecting. The swords have been drawn, the secrets have been spoken, the dragons are coming. And somewhere in the story, we never got to read. A Dornish princess who survived the worst night of her life sits across a table from a silver-haired girl with fire in her eyes, and two women decide the fate of the world between them. Westeros was never going to be simple. It was never going to be clean, but it might, in this alternate telling, have been just. One choice, one man, one night in King's Landing. What if Ned Stark had run a little faster? We will never know, but now at least we have imagined it together. If this journey through the world of ice and fire ignited something in you, then you are exactly where you belong. Throne of Tale is where the greatest stories in fantasy history come alive again. Every week we ask the questions no one else dares to ask. What if the villains won? What if the heroes made different choices? What if history turned on a single quiet act of courage? Subscribe to Throne of Tale right now and never miss a single chapter of the stories that define our world. Hit that bell, because the next episode changes everything. The throne is waiting. Come claim it.